Let me ask you something that might make you a little bit uncomfortable. Have you ever noticed how long it takes your team to make decisions lately? I mean, are conversations feeling cautious? Collaboration feels maybe forced instead of natural? I have to say, this is not a strategy problem. It's not a motivation problem. It's more probably a trust problem, and it's costing you far more than you think it is. And that's what we're talking about today on Marc Haine Live. Welcome to this episode of Marc Haine Live. Of course, this is where small business owners and entrepreneurs develop new skills to help them create the jaw dropping, show stopping experience that your customers and your employees deserve. I am your host, customer and employee experience strategist, Marc Haine, and I'm really glad that you're here with me today because today I have two guests for this episode, Dr. Dennis Reina and Dr. Michelle Reina. And today we will take a hard look at what really happens when trust erodes inside organizations and what leaders can do to rebuild that trust to actually drive results. I do have one simple request though. If there's somebody in your circle who could benefit from the insights that we're sharing today, please do them a favor and pass along a link to this episode. Knowledge is power, but man, it's only powerful if you can share it. And of course, if you haven't done so yet, please make sure you subscribe to this podcast. That way you'll get notifications when I bring you fresh new content each and every week. You know, I was talking to our guest just prior to hitting the live button, and I have to say, trust is one of those virtues that I find in very high regard. I find that most times when we talk about trust, we kind of drive it into the direction that seems more about fulfilling a personal agenda than actually being a virtue we're living by. It's one of those words that leaders love to put on the wall and quietly ignore in practice. I mean, maybe they think it's there. Maybe they think trust is all around them. Like I've talked to leaders. I know people trust me. People trust me. And we assume that trust is there. And we assume that trust will survive everyday pressures. And we assume trust will be there, even though we have a bad moment. And in that bad moment, we think maybe it doesn't matter. But to be honest, trust rarely breaks in dramatic explosions. It erodes in tiny moments. Missed follow throughs, unclear communication, unspoken frustrations until one day momentum is gone and nobody knows why. And that brings us to our question of the day. So, if trust inside your organization were measured today, would the results accelerate performance or quietly explain why things feel harder than they actually should? I'd love for you to share your experiences. Why don't you go ahead and share this episode on your favorite social media platform? Hashtag it experienced leadership. Put your comments down and let's start a conversation all around trust. As I mentioned today, my guests today are two people who have to devoted their lives to understanding one of the most misunderstood forces in leadership and business. Dr. Dennis Reina and Dr. Michelle Reina are internationally recognized pioneers in organizational trust. They're best-selling authors of Trust and Betrayal in the Workplace and the co-founders of Reina Trust Building. Their work has helped leaders in Fortune 500 companies, government agencies, gosh knows, we know need trust there. Healthcare systems also need trust there, and nonprofits around the world to help them understand how trust is built, sustained, measured, and repaired when it is broken. But this isn't just academic for them. Trust is personal, it's professional, it's their life's work. And with their upcoming book, The Art of Trust Building, they continue to turn trust from a vague ideal into practical leadership skills. Dennis and Michelle, welcome to Marc Haine Live. It's so great to have you.
Yeah, it's great to be here, Mark. Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you,
So,
Mark.
yeah. So so maybe we could start off a little bit about, let's dive a little bit deeper into what you do and who your clients are and how do you serve them?
We work with organizations all over the world, big and small, and essentially help them transform their cultures by building high trust relationships.
And so when you have these clients, I mean, at what point does a client turn to you and call you up and say, "I think trust sucks. Can you please help me?" Or are there indicators that say that they need help? Because I have a sneaking suspicion it's not the former.
Some of your opening comments were right on cue. Some of the most common things we hear leaders talk with us about is, why is collaboration suffering? People working within silos rather than across silos. Why change initiatives are stalling out. Why people are having a hard time making decisions. Things are getting bogged down, taking a long time rather than talking with one another. People are talking around one another. Often some of the indicators are engagement. You asked a question about, well, if you could measure trust, what would happen? Well,
Mhm.
often people are looking at the quality of trust through things like engagement scores or retention analysis. So when engagement scores are stalling out or declining, there are trust indicators all the way around that, because when trust is high, people are engaging. So at the end of the day, when leaders are calling us, they're trying to understand why people are doing their second best rather than their best, and why
Mm.
teams are not firing on all cylinders, and why growth isn't happening at the magnitude in which the executive leadership needs it to happen. And change is so pervasive right now, and organizations are asking people to step into the unknown, to manage ambiguity, and to embrace the kind of uncertainty that comes in the lay of the land that we are all living in. So those are some of the scenarios that leaders are calling in and turning to us for.
And
Yeah.
also there's the teams are reluctant to collaborate. Teams are,
Right.
instead of jumping in with 2 feet, they're questioning and doubting and do they really mean this, or
Mm.
are they for real, or are they just giving us another political line or spiel? And so trust, when teams are based upon a foundation of trust, they jump in, they collaborate, they don't hesitate, they don't second guess, they don't gossip about one another. They're fully committed, they deliver on time every time.
Mhm. So what are leaders misunderstanding about trust right now? Like what's the pervasive kind of mindset when trust is low and they're just shrugging, going, "I don't know what's wrong."
I think you said something at the opening that was rather brilliant. You commented, Mark, "Oh, we have trust, and here's a sign on the wall, so to speak." And that really caught Dennis's and my attention, because, so often leaders espouse trust as a value. They espouse trust as something that they believe in. It may be in their mission statement, their vision statement. It may be held as a leadership competency, but talking about it and posting it is not what earns it. What earns it, the only thing that earns it, is how we show up and behave.
And there are 3 dimensions, Mark. There are 3 dimensions of trust that we have found over our 35 years of research and writing and speaking and consulting in this field. There's trust of character. We basically do what we say we do. We deliver as promised, and we're consistent in our behavior, and our expectations are in line and understood. Then there's trust of communication. We openly and honestly communicate with one another. We speak transparently with one another, and we tell the truth. And if we can't, we admit mistakes. We don't just try to hide or cover them up. Um, we fess up and we take responsibility. And then
Mhm.
there's trust of capability. We acknowledge and leverage the skills of one another in service to our clients and our customers. Those 3 at a high level are the dimensions that we have found that contribute to building trust each and every day. And there are
Yeah.
different behaviors under each dimension.
And they're a solution, Mark, to the very challenge we just talked about. Because when a leader takes trust and posts it on the wall as something that's really important to them, it generally and genuinely is. It is. Leaders don't espouse the importance of it if they don't believe in it. The challenge is that often leaders misunderstand how to actually live that, how to take it off the wall and put it into motion. So, the three dimensions Dennis just talked about in the behaviors is what helps them back that up. They can talk about it, but help them back that up in action in words.
And in our new book right over here, The Art of Trust Building that you mentioned in the intro, we actually go into, and each dimension, there's a chapter on each dimension, and we lay it out. We take the concept and put it into practice. We take the abstract and give people actionable behaviors that build trust and rebuild trust when it's been tarnished, eroded, or broken. And this book helps people in their everyday lives. It's not just a feel good topic, it helps them from a practical, actionable standpoint.
Mhm. So, to roll us back, I really want to get into the three C's and kind of what people can do to kind of reignite the three C's. But
Ah.
I think that in today's, I think for some reason there's kind of a perception about trust, or there are myths about trust. Are there any myths about trust that we need to bust today before we kind of dig a little bit deeper in giving people the tools? What's mindset looking like? What are the things people are saying as far as the myths that they believe is a really great way to be able to fire quote unquote trust?
It's a great question. I'm sorry, Dennis. Do you mind if I quickly jump in?
Jump in.
There's a few things that came to my mind. I think one myth is that people have a tendency to wait for leaders to take the first step. And yes, leaders do need to role model. They do. But yet trust begins with each and every one of us. Trust is not singularly a leadership responsibility. It's really everybody's responsibility. And everybody can learn how to bring themselves to relationships in trustworthy ways. It's the language and the actions that people need to be supported to learn and discover. So, trust beginning with me, trust beginning with us breaks a myth that we really can't take a step in building a culture of trust. We got to wait and see what our leader does.
And
Mhm.
also, the fact is that people need to understand that trust is not just a nice thing to have, it's a business imperative. That
Yeah,
people,
it's
and
essential.
they, as Michelle said, they don't have to wait, that they can take that first step, they can jump in, they can make that call, they can write that email, they can take that initiative.
That brings us to another key myth is that trust is nebulous, that it is esoteric, that it's not measurable. Those are two very, very common myths. I'm talking about two in parallel process. Yes, trust may be held esoterically as a value and a belief, but it actually is something that is built through behavior.
Yeah.
It can be very concrete and actionable. The other myth is that it's not measurable, and trust actually is measurable. We've been measuring it for over 30 years. In fact, what we find is that measuring, assessing trust is extremely valuable because it gives everybody a starting point. Everybody needs to know where trust stands now. So actually in the new book, Mark, we include in the book a link to an individual trust assessment. We have learned through our years working with teams and leaders and organizations how valuable that baseline assessment is. So this is a companion to the book to give everybody a starting point because it's too important to leave to guesswork.
Yes.
It's too important to leave to blind assumption. And taking a self assessment is not about judging or criticizing, it's about helping us to take stock. How am I doing? How am I showing up? Because the vast majority of behavior that causes trust to break down is unintentional. We don't realize it. So, Dennis and I, our team, were actually really excited to create this assessment to be a companion with this book because right now we live in a time and a space in the world where trust is needed more than ever. and it is the most vulnerable than it has ever been. So, the intention here is to help us all have a place to go to strengthen trust in our relationships.
And it's not just a rinky dink quiz. I mean, this is a statistically valid and reliable assessment. Okay. And what people actually get, and they're actually very surprised, is they get a very robust 11-page report that fully analyzes where they stand on those three dimensions we mentioned: trust of character, trust of communication, and trust of capability, and map out the developmental plan. And there's a page on each of coaching tips. And these are very robust coaching tips. They're not just little quiz responses, they are actionable and behavioral.
Can you tell we're excited about it, Mark?
I love when people are nerding out on what they're passionate about. So your
We're
book,
very
when is your
excited
book
about it.
releasing? When is your book coming out?
January 13th.
January 13th,
2026.
2026,
January
in
13th.
case
Yeah.
somebody's
Yes.
watching this February. And so
Yeah.
the worksheets, are the worksheets available right now on your website, or do you have to wait until the book is released?
Well, you know what? The assessment travels with the book. So when
Perfect.
people purchase the book, but you've got a really cool listening audience. So as people are listening to this conversation we're having with you, and they're so excited about this assessment, oh, they'd really love to get it sooner than later. Send them our way, and we'd be delighted to provide them with the link.
I love that.
Absolutely.
It'd be our pleasure.
And people can also have the link right now. I mean, the link is available, for example, on Amazon.com. The Art of Trust Building. I'll move my head here.
I love that. Okay, so when we come back, I'd like to dig a little bit deeper into those three dimensions of trust that you mentioned earlier. I think because I
Okay.
think once we get clarity over that, I think solutions become a little bit more self-evident, don't they?
Yeah.
And we'll
Yeah.
get to that. So we'll get to that right after this.
When the spotlight shines on your business, are customers applauding or yawning? In other words, how is your business performing? Make your business a star with the new book, Lights, Camera, Action: Business Operational Excellence Through the Lens of Live Theater by Marc Haine. Marc uses his business and acting experience to help you see your business like a live show, so you can create a performance your customers will never forget. Buy Lights, Camera, Action today at your favorite online retailer or directly at marchaine.com.
Welcome back. I am speaking with Dr. Dennis Reina and Dr. Michelle Reina. And I love the fact that you have this book out. It is definitely something to look into, because I think part of the challenge with trust is people have perceptions of trust. And so I love the fact that you've defined now these three dimensions of character, communication, and capability. Could we dig a little bit deeper into each one of
Sure.
those? You gave a very quick summary, but because I think most people will say, oh no, I have a very strong character. I'm strong character. I have a very, grounded character, and they self kind of evaluate that. When we talk about character within the confines of trust, what specifically are you looking for?
Well, first of all, there are 6 behaviors
Hmm.
that contribute to building trust of character. There's, first of all, manage expectations. Do
Hmm.
we, in fact, deliver those expectations, and are they understood on the other side? It's one thing to talk about and to deliver, it's another thing to have the understanding, and are we on the same page with one another? The second behavior is establishing boundaries. How well do we manage those parameters? Okay, whether it be job descriptions, whether it be role, clarifications, whether it be project, requirements, et cetera, et cetera. How well are those managed? Are there check-ins periodically? Are there, regular meetings, et cetera, et cetera? Then the third behavior is, how well do we delegate? Delegating appropriately. Do we give people not only the responsibility, but also the authority and the resources to do the jobs we expect them to do?
Right.
There's keeping agreements. Do we do what we say we're going to do? We're all human beings. So it's not uncommon that we make a commitment, we formulate an agreement, and life happens. And if we're not able to keep that agreement, do we just let time go by and make pretend that nothing ever happened, or do we step forward and renegotiate that agreement and consistency? Trust of character is what builds alignment and synergy. It is the dimension that really demonstrates that I am reliable, I am dependable, you can count on me, I'm going to come through. It's particularly important in the formation of teams and building alignment around projects and goals, et cetera, and essential during change. Trusted communication is the dimension that sets the tone for openness and transparency in the interpersonal space. Is it safe to tell the truth
Right.
about the status of a project?
Right.
Do I speak what I think people want to hear, or do I really speak what is true for me? Trusted communication. At times today in the world that we live in, when there's so much uncertainty, people can conjecture. And
Sure.
when things don't go our way, we can get a little gossipy. We can talk about people behind their back. We can make up stories about what's going on. Trusted communication is when we really put our concerns on the table with positive intent and we talk them through. We call that speak with good purpose, and it's a very core behavior in trust of communication. And it accompanies feedback, how we give and receive feedback to help one another really learn and grow.
And also admit mistakes. It takes some courage to admit mistakes. And is it safe enough to? Are we going to get, cut off at the knees, or is it a safe enough, culture and environment to say, hey, I blew that one. I take responsibility for that, but it won't happen again, or whatever. And really own up to and live up to the responsibility of taking that,
To learn from it,
and to learn from it and to
because
grow from it.
small businesses and entrepreneurialism is all about taking chances,
Right.
taking risks, try something new. Every now and again, an entrepreneur or a team might be going all the way to the mat.
It's interesting that you say that because that's how the startups first get going, right? It's all about risk taking, it's trying things they've never done before, it's testing, it's trying. But then when the business is established and people are looking at their financials and their cost benefit analysis and they're looking at profit and loss, all of a sudden now they seem to fall into kind of status quo thinking where it's like, no, we're just going to keep doing what we're doing because we know we're getting revenue, and they become
Sure.
afraid that they might try something and lose people along the way. Is that fair? And it looks like
People along the
there we
way. And when the status quo takes over, the lowest common denominator becomes the norm, and
right.
people are withholding and playing it safe. And as a result, the richness of their skills and capabilities actually are dramatically underutilized.
And compromised.
And that entrepreneur or that owner of that small business, what they're getting is a bunch of people that are just simply going through the motions.
Yeah.
Right. And then they get frustrated years down going, oh, I don't know why nobody's taking initiative. I don't know why nobody's trying anything. I don't know why our competition is jumping and leapfrogging right over us. And we tend to then, I love the whole blame game thing, right? I love that quote about when you blame
Yep.
something, when you're pointing fingers at something,
Yep.
you're pointing one finger this way and three fingers at yourself.
Yeah.
Well, that's a common tendency because when these behaviors are not practiced consistently, Mark, actually trust breaks down.
Yes.
Sure.
So
Yes.
trust can be built and trust can be broken. And the truth of the matter is, it is a lot faster and easier to break it than it is to build it.
Yes.
So
Right.
this key facet of, we don't want trust for today. We need trust for today and tomorrow.
Right.
Entrepreneurs and small businesses, oh my goodness, those relationships are so sacred. And when you think about people working together in a small business, that's family.
Mhm.
They're in each other's lives. I mean, that's really very sacred space, and it takes time. In those small businesses, people really get to know that business on the inside out. So the entrepreneurs can't afford to lose trust.
Mhm.
But they do need to learn the vulnerability of it so they can protect it and sustain it and help to rebuild it. Really, which really brings us to that third dimension of trusted capability.
Right.
And that, core to that trusted capability is acknowledging people's skills and abilities. And one of the most powerful ways to do that is to use them, to leverage them, to demonstrate confidence in them, to give some chances and help them learn new skills. Now, helping learn new skills is not just the concrete tangible, but just these behaviors that we're talking about. That's skills.
Yes.
Helping people practice these behaviors that build trust, that's skills. And involving them in decisions. How much intel do people have that they don't really have a chance to bring to the decision making process? Are very key behaviors that build that trust of capability.
And also helping them and allowing them, in fact, even more so, empowering them to make decisions.
Mhm.
You learn so much. Yes, you learn from your mistakes. You learn from both the good things, but I think you also learn from the mistakes that were made that didn't quite work out, didn't quite plan out as we had hoped or had planned.
Mhm.
And those are learning lessons. And I mean, we know that over the last 3.5 decades, we've learned through our mistakes big time for
Mhm.
sure. Um, and I think those are the most powerful because
So,
you
I
don't
mean,
forget those.
so you have trust of character, you have trust of communication, trust of capability. Where does capacity fit into the mix? I mean, we can have the capability for
Oh,
trust, but between the various kind of daily crises that we face, where I dare say I think most trust is eroded when we're in crisis, we also need to
Yeah.
have the capacity for trust. No,
Yes.
where does that fit in?
that's really our relationship with ourselves.
Yes.
Our capacity to trust ourselves and our capacity to trust others. Capacity for trust is at the center of it all. And what we mean by that is our readiness and our willingness to trust other people and to trust ourselves. Now, that's a really critical point at this time.
Mhm.
Because there are so many businesses, as we've said to one another a number of times during this conversation, that there's a tremendous amount of ambiguity right now. There's a
Yes.
lot of
Uh, Uncertainty.
uncertainty, and
Yes.
people are feeling very vulnerable. And during those periods of time, we're living at a time when trust is at an all-time low. So people tend to contract. And when they're contracting, they're often contracting their trust in themselves. They may be questioning, can I hang in here?
Can I do this?
Can I really do
Do I,
this?
do I have what it
Hmm.
takes? You know,
It's
and
in
and it, yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, it's interesting because as you said that, I start kind of popping into kind of the recourse around around politics and that sort of thing. Where does identity fit into all this? Because when you think about trust, when you think people are out there trusting certain words, I mean the news is full of, oh, this is fake news, oh, this is AI, oh, you can't trust this, you can't trust this, and you can't trust this. As human beings, how do we start grounding ourselves to start being able to say, okay, it's okay for me to start thinking a little bit critically now. I have to start analyzing what I'm hearing, and I have to then start trusting in my capability that I can spot when there's a lot of misinformation and distrust going on around me.
Yes.
Yeah, I think we bring that into the workplace and our relationships, by asking questions and checking in, testing assumptions, getting curious. That's the trust of communication is what we're really talking about. Where people do talk about their issues, their concerns, their fears, their
Their needs.
vulnerabilities, their needs. The whole aspect of expectations is essential because underlying expectations there are needs. Is there a need for information? Is there a need for an open conversation? Is there a need for greater clarity? Is there a need to redefine agreements? Are there assumptions that we're holding, that we're formulating by what's going on in the world around us that we need to talk about to get some clarity and discernment about how much of that is really applicable and pertinent in my relationships, in my world?
In my situation.
Um, because we can start formulating these perceptions and having these vulnerabilities by what we read and by what we hear. And what leaders want and need to do is create a safe space for people to talk openly about how much of that is real here in our work with one another. And what choices do we have, and what options do we have, and how do we work through that together? Because, Mark, when we have this much uncertainty, it's human nature to start making up stories,
Yeah.
Right.
and those stories can grow and grow and grow, and then we must start talking to one another about those stories. They can take on a life of their own, and that's where culture can become really vulnerable. But it's human tendency, it's human nature. So leaders go do something really significant to maintain and strengthen trust when they invite those conversations in,
Mhm.
with the team, and in their one-on-ones, and the natural opportunities they have, day in and day out.
Because
It's
those
a real service.
and those conversations are going to happen anyway. But if they can, as leaders, influence those and create a safe space for those to happen, then the outcome will be a lot better than if they're happening by themselves and the story is getting bigger and bigger, but it's not the truth, or it's not applicable to our situation here at hand.
Yeah, this is absolutely fascinating for the people tuning in who might realize that they need help into understanding what the trust culture is in their organizations and need help solving that. How can people reach you if they need help?
They can reach us at our website,
Yep.
www.reinatrustbuilding.com. There's email address there. We love to hear from people. So that would be the clearest, fastest way. There will be an email address that they can reach out to, and we've got a really dedicated team. They'll be rapidly responsive, and we love and welcome hearing from people.
I love it. I was on your website earlier today and I looked at your team and the brilliance that you surround yourself with. And it's like, oh my goodness, this is pretty serious stuff. So you got the resources to be able to help a lot of people. So I'm pretty, kudos to you. Um,
Well,
Thank you.
thank you. We can't do it alone. We're entrepreneurs like your listening audience. So we know their world quite well. We live it.
Yeah, and
Uh,
and this is our life's work. This is not
yeah,
just a job or a function for us. This is our 3.5 decades, and going strong. This is what we're dedicated and what we are here to serve.
I love that. And you know what? It's showing it shows in your attitude, it shows in how you communicate it. And then, of course, it shows how you show up online as well. For anybody tuning in, if you go to their website, they also have some amazing blog posts that you should take in because it's brilliant. And it gives you things that, at the very least, as leaders, when you consume information, you could take that information and share it with your frontline supervisors and your
mhm,
middle
mhm.
managers to
Yep.
help them build capacity as well. So
Yep.
once trust has been shattered, and it's shattered,
Mhm.
like you've gone through, you've done the blame game, you bring somebody in to help you isolate what the challenges are, and you realize that one of those three dimensions is lacking. What steps can leaders take to kind of fix the situation?
Yeah. Well, first of all, they need to acknowledge what has happened. Okay. They
Mm,
need to acknowledge the impact of what has happened, whether it be in a breach or an erosion of trust or a breakdown in a relationship. So that's a first key step.
And sometimes there are small, subtle things. There may be something like some very pertinent information that was not disseminated and
Or
impacted the delivery of a project.
yeah.
mm,
That can have an impact on trust, because there's effort that was made, there was work that was done on insufficient information. That has an impact. Sometimes we think about great big huge earth shattering things that break down trust, that Dennis and I call betrayal, but sometimes the inconsistency of practicing the behaviors that build those three dimensions causes trust to be vulnerable. And the tendency is to sweep it under the rug,
Yeah.
but the first step is to really acknowledge what happened and the impact, because that then gives room and space to constructively allow feelings to emerge. Here's the thing about trust: you really can't see it. You really can't. It is invisible, but it is an energy field. We can all feel it. When it is present, it's expansive. I mean, there's a vibe, there's an energy, there's a buzz. There's nothing that's going to
There's a
stop a team and
buzz.
organization. But when it's missing, holy cow, that energy contracts. And when trust has been made vulnerable, people have a need to talk about it.
Yes.
And one of the things they need to talk about is their feelings. So in the whole aspect of rebuilding trust, there's a healing component that really does ask leaders to observe and acknowledge what happened, the impact that it had, and make room and space for people to talk about their feelings. Is it disappointment? Is it concern? Is it anger? Is it frustration? Is it doubt? And then support people, because we don't want people to hang out there for a good long time. So leaders do need to think about how they can support their people through that process of rebuilding trust, and how they can support themselves.
Right.
One of the biggest mistakes entrepreneurs and leaders make is they don't support themselves.
Right.
They need support.
Right.
Because from there, the key is just reframing, where we turn those hurts and disappointments into opportunities to learn and grow as individuals. And that's what small businesses need, but they just cannot expect people to get there immediately on their own. The leaders
Mhm.
got to help them reframe, look at the bigger picture, extenuating circumstances, options and choices, and
Yeah.
that are at play.
And then from there, it's take responsibility. Okay, given the options, given the possibilities, what do I do now? What's mine to own and take responsibility, but what's not mine to own either? And that those two sides of the coin are very important to distinguish. And then from there, it's how do I forgive myself of what has happened or what hasn't happened, and
And give yourself
forgiving
grace. Yeah.
and giving, exactly, extending grace,
Mhm.
to that, and then let go and move on. And this is not often an easy process, and I know this personally. I mean, this framework actually came from over 40 years ago, long before I met my beautiful bride of 33 years. I went through a very painful divorce, and I went through this process, and it was about learning how to, first observe and acknowledge what happened, allowing my feelings to surface, getting the support, whether it be coaching, counseling, men's groups, et cetera, talking with trusted colleagues and friends. And then, okay, seeing the options, all right, reframing the experience. What were the choices I did have? Taking responsibility myself, forgiving, let going, and moving on. And I had circled through those 7 steps probably a gazillion times over a number of years. And but what we have also found is it works for small businesses, it works for leaders, it works for teams
You
and
know, it's
organizations.
it's shifting that blame game. Excuse me, Dennis.
Yes.
A little bit ago, Mark, you were talking in a very animated way about the blame game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, when there's a blame game, there is abdication of responsibility, and underlying all of it is trust. So is a breakdown of trust. So there may have been some things that have occurred that were outside of team members' experiences. I mean, outside of their control, rather. We don't always have control on decisions that are made around us and decisions that are executed. We don't. But at the end of the day, we all have control over how we respond. We do.
Right.
And that's a key aspect about the process of healing and renewal. When a leader takes responsibility to support their people, observe and acknowledge what happened, the impact, just full stop. Open, honest conversation, and giving space for people to talk about, what their concerns are, what their worries are. That earns them the privilege to really help their people now turn a corner.
Yeah.
Because nobody wants to live in the pain and the suffering that comes in this, because when we're in a blame game, it doesn't feel good to anybody. It's exhausting to be living in this space of doom and gloom and everything is bad. So when we shift into reframing, we're actually moving into life. We're actually moving into
Choosing life.
connection with people. it takes a lot of courage to sit back and say, okay, what is mine to own? How long do I want to be on this pity pot? How many people do I want to blame? How does that help me? And when I get in my car and go home at the end of the day and walk in the door, what am I bringing with me?
Yeah,
How
right.
much fun is it to sit down and have dinner with me that night? And do the people sitting there at the table want me back tomorrow night?
And do I
Because
kick the dog, and the cat or whatever?
No
so,
kicking the dog. You're not
No
allowed to kick the
kicking.
dog. It's interesting as you're saying that. Two words kept popping into my head, and that is intentionality and humility.
yes.
As leaders, we
Yeah.
need the humility to not be this grandiose kind of lead from the corner office. We need
Yep.
humility. We need that humility to say it's okay for me to be vulnerable and to admit fault. We also need the
Yeah.
intentionality that even when things are really, really tough, we need to be able to fall back to our core values. Am I on the right track?
Yeah, I
Oh,
mean, the
absolutely.
humility, it takes, this is courageous.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's a very rich dialogue, and the truth of the matter is it takes a lot of courage to live this. And
Right.
so
And
a
to be
leader
vulnerable.
a leader gains that humility through their own process of self-discovery, compassion. This is, requires quite a bit of introspection, and a leader's got to get out of their head
Mhm.
and do the internal work within themselves, and that is a very intentional practice,
Yeah.
very, very intentional. And it's through that, Mark, that leaders show up as real people,
People.
because at the end of the day, they're human like all of
Yep.
us. We're all a works in
Go
progress.
figure.
We're all gonna trip up. I mean, Dennis and I experienced that ourselves. I mean, we write these books. We have to live this work as well, and
Yeah, we don't
we're
just write the
not always
books.
perfect either.
Right, right. We don't just write the books, we're called, when you write a book about trust, you're held to a higher standard anyway.
Right.
And this is our fifth book on the topic, so
Yeah.
um,
Because
we
if you trip
understand.
up, people remind you, you wrote the book on trust. You better live up to it.
Eh,
So we do a fair degree of giving ourselves permission to be human as well. But the thing of it is that when leaders do give themselves permission to be human, and they express that humility, oh my gosh, they make it safe for everybody else to do so as well. They're more
Right.
relatable. People
Yeah.
want to connect. They want to get to know them.
And they set the stage.
It's magic.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's just magic that can happen.
yeah.
Well, and the true test, if anybody's ever watched like shows like Undercover Boss, right? The whole
Mhm.
realization, like both on the top end as well as
Yeah.
on the front end of a business, like there's so many different epiphanies that happen when we actually break down those barriers. When we come back, I'd like to talk a little bit about some cautionaries and pitfalls. My fear is that there are some leaders out there who get a snippet of some information and they turn around and they go, you know what? Now I have to work on this. So next 30 days, and it becomes the policy or the strategy of the month. So when we come
Right.
back, I'd like to talk about some cautionaries and pitfalls as we try to repair our culture to be more trustworthy. And we'll get to that right after this.
When you're delivering an important speech to a huge audience, it's easy to lose your place or go way over time. Give yourself an advantage with the Pro Speaker Presentation Speech Timer app. No more checking your watch or calling for time. The Pro Speaker Presentation Speech Timer app keeps you on track with easy-to-see timers, even changing color for visual prompts during your speech. And you can set audio cues to practice, or set it to vibrate so you don't even have to look. Be the pro you know you are. Download the app at speakerpresentationtimer.com.
We are having an amazing discussion today, and I hope you're getting lots from it. As evident from our discussion today, you can tell that we are deeply dedicated to supporting business leaders just like you. So if you're in the midst of something like planning a leadership retreat or an industry conference, and you're looking for amazing content or you're needing some expert guidance, we're just a message away. Feel free to reach out to us for a conversation about your unique challenges or to discuss how we can collaborate, maybe to help you achieve your goals. Reach out to us. Our contact information is in the show notes. I get a sense, Michelle and Dennis, that in order to build this trust, we need daily behaviors. What daily behaviors matters most when we're thinking about strengthening our trust over a long period of time?
Well, one of the things is making sure that your expectations are clear, okay,
Hmm.
versus vague and not so clear. Do you map out and do you spell out clearly what you need from people, what you expect of people with timelines and check-ins? And I think those check-ins are very, very important, those periodic check-ins.
And
Hmm.
do they have from you what they need? Do they have the clarity of what they can expect from you and the resources? I love this question that you're asking. It is not a quick fix.
No.
Trust building is not to fix somebody. It's
Right.
it does require embracing this as an approach to life. So we
Hmm.
talked a little bit about the break about intentions, getting really clear in the intentions. We really hope people take the self-assessment so they have a really clear starting point. But the expectations, why Dennis has talked about that a few times during our call, is underlying expectations are needs, are needs. And when needs are not met, things go sideways. So we really encourage leaders to get do their inner work.
Yeah.
Consider how they want people to experience them, how they want to bring themselves to relationships. Get very clear on those intentions. We can't all focus on 3 dimensions and 16 behaviors at one time. Oh my goodness
Right.
gracious. But we can hone in on the one or two that
Yeah.
we feel are most essential. And when we do, we raise the bar all the way around,
Right.
because it's all about connecting. Every single person has a need to be trusted and to trust
Yeah.
others. And what people want in organizations and in life is to be in relationship and connected with other people on a human level, and to be
Right.
safe to be human. And when leaders create that, oh my gosh, they open the door for health and vitality to their people in every facet of their lives.
Also, another key point is, do we deliver as promised?
Mhm.
Do we deliver on our commitments? Do we deliver? And if
Yeah.
we can't, do we renegotiate at the earliest, lowest level? I
Right.
can't make that meeting at,
Yeah.
or do we just blow it off?
Yeah, no excuses. How reliable and dependable are we? Does our word count? Is extraordinary. And is it really safe? Can somebody come and talk to me about anything? If they miss the mark, is it okay that they talk to me about it?
And also helping people learn new skills.
Mhm.
I think that's a really key thing. If particularly in this day and age, employees aren't there just for the paycheck. Is this
Mhm.
something that I can learn from? Is this a job that I can grow and gain not only knowledge but experience and skills that will support me in my growth and development in my career?
Especially today with so much focus and emphasis on AI and people questioning what their relevance will be,
Hmm.
leaders do need to give some focused attention on what kind of skills and knowledge are their life skills, are their interpersonal skills, are their discernment skills, but that trusted capability. Because, Mark, you asked a little bit ago about capacity for trust.
Hmm.
When leaders are practicing these behaviors and helping their people practice, remember, trust is reciprocal. This is
Yeah.
not about a leader doing all the work.
No,
This is
no.
about a leader engaging. This is a full-on team sport, if you will.
You got to give
Um,
it to get it.
but when
Yep.
leaders extend, they're building that reciprocity. And the beautiful thing about trusted capability, it's for the long haul.
Yeah.
Building and leveraging our trusted capability, really throughout our life, because the behaviors that we're talking about at work are applicable to every facet of our life. How we show up in our lifetime relationships with children's, with partners, with neighbors, with communities, because everywhere we go, there's people, and we all long to have connection with those people.
Well, I like that you mentioned about starting with the internal self first, starting with you self, because
Mhm.
I do think that when we're talking about cautionaries and pitfalls, I do think that a lot of times it'll be when it comes down even to respect. Heard bosses say, my staff don't they have to respect me. Right? And I think trust falls into that as well, that they'll turn around and they're not working on the internal part of themselves. So would one of the cautionaries be that we cannot be looking outside at our teams and at our departments saying that they have to become more trustworthy? We have to start with ourselves first.
Yeah, we've got to be willing to look at ourselves and bring forward the very thing we want in other people. If we're sitting back and waiting for others, we're really abdicating the responsibility, because
Right.
trust actually begins with each and every one of us. Trust begins with me.
When the spotlight shines on your business, are customers applauding or yawning? In other words, how is your business performing? Make your business a star with the new book, Lights, Camera, Action: Business Operational Excellence Through the Lens of Live Theater by Marc Haine. Marc uses his business and acting experience to help you see your business like a live show, so you can create a performance your customers will never forget. Buy Lights, Camera, Action today at your favorite online retailer or directly at marchaine.com.
Are there any other cautionaries that you think we should make people aware of before they decide that they need help and that they have to start developing their level of trustworthiness and their internal trust?
I think the cautionary is to not underestimate, to understand that the kind of dynamics that we've been talking about are just at play. It comes with just the facet of being a human being. So we would encourage leaders to not view building trust as a problem they need to fix,
Right.
but as of an environment that they want to create, and the intentionality in fostering these high trust relationships and helping their people to foster high trust relationships, and embracing it as an
Right.
approach to how they are in relationships, and as approach to how they run their business, because the behaviors that build trust are the very behaviors that produce results. What trust is going to do is just accelerate. That's what it's going to do. It's
Mm,
going to accelerate growth. It's going to accelerate performance. It's going to unleash the potential that people have for doing their best work. So it's not about something that, a leader ought to focus on for the next 2 weeks or 3 weeks. It's something they need to embrace and incorporate into how work gets done every day, and in all facets of their life. It's embedded in who they are, and how they roll.
Because
I love that.
trust is a journey. Trust is a journey. And let's face it, businesses that are effective, businesses are based upon relationships. And those relationships that are most effective are based on trust.
This has been such an amazing conversation. Could you remind everybody one more time how they can get a hold of you?
At our website, www.reinatrustbuilding.com. Please send us an email. We love hearing from people, and we will be very responsive. And we'd love people to send an email and say, hey, we really want to take that self assessment. We're on board. We really want to take it. Please let us know, and we'll make sure they get it.
And you can also order the book right now on Amazon.com. Absolutely.
And there's no such thing as a shameless plug.
No, no way.
Thank you so much. I want to thank you so much for sharing your passion and your expertise with us today. It's been absolutely brilliant. Thanks for doing this.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you,
Thank you for
Mark.
having us.
Why don't you let me know if this was of value to you? As always, my offer stands. If you would like 30 minutes of my time to brainstorm your business with you and your team, feel free to book yourself on my online calendar. The link is in the show notes. It's the one that's conveniently marked meetwith.marchaine.com. It would be my honor to be of service to you. And while you're at it, why don't you go ahead and leave a comment or review about this episode? I'd love to get your feedback. Was this of value to you? And of course, if you haven't done so yet, please make sure you subscribe to the podcast. Please, I'd like to get to 2,000 subscribers. I know it's meager. There's so many people out there with 2 billion. I'm okay with 2,000. Mediocrity at its finest, folks. Thank you again for joining me today. My name is Marc Haine. I hope you stay safe, stay healthy, and I hope you dare to be the exception. Bye for now.